Hi class, today's lesson is lesson 7-1. Purpose for today's lesson is to write ratios and rates and find unit rates. We have 4 vocabulary terms. Our first vocabulary term is ratios. Ratios is the comparing of two quantities using division. Now, a part of ratios includes fractions. In fact, they operate much like fractions. Let's take a look more specifically at what ratios are. Here are 3 ratios. 1 cat to 2 dogs, 1 to 2, 1 to 2. Each of these different notations is a ratio. In fact, they are the ratio that represents the same quantities. To look at it even more specifically, if we take this illustration, we have 1 cat to 2 dogs, 1 cat to 2 dogs, 1 to 2. If we put 2 more dogs in there and 1 more cat in there, we'd still have a 1 to 2 ratio, which we'll describe in more detail here in a few minutes. Equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios are ratios that name the same comparison. 1 cat to 2 dogs is the same thing as 2 cats to 4 dogs. Looking back here at the illustration, you can see that 1 cat to 2 dogs is the same thing as 2 cats to 4 dogs. They're equivalent ratios. Rates. Rates are a type of ratio as well. Rates here, we have 20 miles for every 3 hours. In this rate, you see that we compare two quantities that have different units of measure. Measure is the important part here for a rate. You're measuring something. You're measuring time. You're measuring length. You're measuring some sort of spatial dimension. Here we have 20 miles to every 3 hours. 20 miles to 3 hours. When we talk about unit rates, we're talking about a rate in which the second unit is a 1. Here we have 5 miles per 1 hour. Now, of course, we can write this differently. We can write it with a colon, 5 to 1, or 5 to 1 as well. That's how we can write rates, rates which are the same things as ratios. This is a unit ratio because of the second quantity. Let's take a look at the first example. It says use a table to write each ratio. Well, it says a table above, it's actually below. We're going to look at flutes to clarinets. Flutes to clarinets. We have 5 flutes in this symphony of 95 musicians. And how many clarinets? Well, we have 4. So we're going to write that as 5 to 4, or we can write it as 5 to 4, or we can write it as 5 to 4. The order matters. When it says flutes to clarinets, we have to have the first number in each one of these quantities be the number of flutes. And then clarinets is the second. Let's look at trumpets to total instruments. Well, trumpets we have 3. So it's going to be 3 to what? Well, the total number of instruments is 95. 3 to 95, or we can write it as 3 to 95, or we can write it as 3 to 95. Notice we didn't say 3/95ths because this is not necessarily going to be a part of a whole. In this case, actually, it is. 3 out of 3/95ths of the musicians are going to be trumpeters. But not in all cases will we have that sort of situation, a fractional situation. In fact, if we look back here to the flutes and clarinets, 5 to 4 doesn't mean 5/4. It means 5 flutes to 4 clarinets. There is no representation of a whole here. Finally, we have total instruments to basses. So that's going to be 95 to number of basses. We've got basses up here, it's 9. 95 to 9, we can write that a couple different ways. Remember, the order matters, 95 to 9. Next, example 2, it says write 3 equivalent ratios to compare the number of stars with the number of moons in the pattern. Well, we're going to compare number of stars with the number of moons in that order. So it has to be stars to moons. Okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moons and 1, 2, 3, 4 stars. Actually, we have 6 moons and 4 stars. So we write that down as 4 stars to 6 moons. 4 to 6. Another way in which we could do that, of course, is fractionally, writing it with a fraction bar. Although, again, this is not a fraction because it's not a part of a whole. We're comparing two different quantities here. 4 stars to 6 moons. An equivalent ratio would be, if we divide both top and bottom by 2, just like a fraction, we'd get 2 stars for every 3 moons. And we could break that down. 2 stars for every 3 moons. Another way we can go, another direction we could go, is we could add another couple stars, and in so doing, we'd have to add the same amount of moons. Our ratio now changes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stars for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 6 stars for every 9 moons. And how did we get there? Well, we just multiplied top and bottom by 3 here, just like a fraction. Example 3, here's a 2-liter bottle of soda that costs $2.02. A 3-liter bottle of the same soda costs $2.79. Which is the better deal? Here we're going to have to compare the different ratios. First, we have a 2-liter bottle. That's $2.02. Then we have a 3-liter bottle that costs $2.79. Notice that I have to have, when I'm comparing these things, I have to have the same units in the same order. So I've got liters on top, in this case 2 liters, 3 liters, and then I've got dollars on the bottom. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and essentially simplify this into 1 unit. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to back up here because I am actually going to reverse the order. I'm going to reverse the order on this because I want to find out how much money per liter. So I'm going to take cost of the sodas, which is dollars per liter. So I'm going to put 202 over the 2 and compare it to the 279 over the 3. When I do that, I am faced with a fraction bar, which I can find unit rate pretty quickly. But I'm going to go ahead and remind you that unit rate means that second number, in this case the bottom number, is going to be 1. So how do we get from 2 to 1? Well, we divide by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 on the top as well, and we get $1.01 per liter. And that's how often you see it written. $1.01 per liter. 1 liter here. Now we take the 279 and the 3, and in order to essentially simplify that to a unit rate, we're going to divide top and bottom by 3. Get a 1 here, and at the top I've essentially got less than $1. I've got 93 cents. 93 cents per liter. So which is the better deal? Well, my answer has to be it's that 3-liter bottle. It's about 8 cents cheaper than the 2-liter bottle. Finally, here's your complete the problem. You need to, 1, explain why the ratio 2 to 5 is different from the ratio 5 to 2, and you can review this video and find that out. And then here's one calculation which you need to make. If a delivery truck covers a distance of 320 miles in 8 hours, how many miles will he have traveled in 1 hour? Which points to you need to find unit rate, which was that last example that I showed you. All right, we'll see you in class.